necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
The enemy has pulled out all the stops to try to destroy the family for a very long time. That's why the American Family Association stands boldly in the gap to protect and strengthen this God-breathed institution. Visit afa.net today and discover the resources available for you and your family. And if you would, please take a minute to show your support. That's afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. A small plane crashed into a neighborhood in San Diego early this morning.
The fire is out, but there's a large debris field as investigators set about trying to determine what happened to cause the crash of the Cessna 550 aircraft near the Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport. San Diego Assistant Fire Chief Dan Eddy says the direct hit set about 15 homes on fire as well as vehicles. It happened just before 4 a.m. Ronald Jones lives nearby.
We felt the house shake, and after we felt the house shake, there was like this big, it was like a, but it shook the house.
Evacuations were ordered for several nearby blocks. The FAA says the number of people on board the Cessna is not yet known. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
D.C. police apprehending a terrorist who shot and killed 2 Israeli embassy staff members at an event near the Capitol Jewish Museum Wednesday night. The terrorist opened fire on a group of 4 people as they were leaving the event, yelling, "Free, free Palestine," after he was arrested. Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, calls it outrageous.
And when I see what should be educated European nations like the UK and France and Canada go after Israel, I just want to say to them, do you not remember how you won World War II? They're upset because Israel is trying to free hostages out of Gaza, trying to get them from the hands of Hamas. The reason that war has gone on so long and so many casualties is not because of the Israelis or the Americans. It's because of Hamas. We need to know who the real enemy is. And we've got a lot of ignorant, idiotic people who don't seem to understand the difference between right and wrong.
Yoni Colleen witnessed the shooting. He says the irony is that the people who were killed were there to talk about ways to help people in Gaza.
The event was a really special event, bringing together about over 30 embassies or staffers from 30 embassies from around the world, in addition to young professionals. And the conversations were about how can we work together with Muslim, Christian, and Jewish groups to bring aid into Gaza. And so the irony of this violent, horrible crime is that we were trying to find logistical solutions and humanitarian solutions to actually help people.
A big non-decision at the Supreme Court this morning. Shannon Bream reports it has to do with charter schools in Oklahoma.
What it means is there's really no decision on this issue. The question goes unanswered. What happened was the court, without Justice Barrett as part of this, deadlocked 4-4. And literally the paper that comes out as the opinion says the court is equally divided. And that means the lower court decision stands. What the Oklahoma State Supreme Court had decided was that these charter schools, religious in nature, cannot take part in the public funding or the system of public charter schools. So this applies only to that decision then there in Oklahoma. This issue very much could come back to the court. There's no opinion explaining their decision. I would be very surprised if this decision or this topic doesn't come back to the courts, because this push to make sure that religious schools can take part as charter schools is happening all across the country.
A federal civil rights complaint has been filed against Fairfax County, Virginia Public Schools.
The complaint was filed by Defending Education, saying Fairfax County schools have a long-standing race discrimination. Sarah Parshall-Perry, Vice President and Legal Fellow at Defending Education.
This is fairly significant. In fact, we discovered that Fairfax County, which is the 9th largest school district in the country, so that gives you an indication of its size, paid DEI staff, these are obviously diversity, equity, and inclusion staff, specifically related to race essentialism and race-based programs in public education. It paid those staff a total of $5.7 million to implement radicalized policy that literally took federally funded benefits and distributed them on the basis of race.
That, says Perry, is unconscionable.
It is unconstitutional. It's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, as the Supreme Court's just reminded us. And it's a violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which guarantees that any federally funded program will be neutral and will not discriminate on the basis of race, ethnicity, or national origin.
I'm Chris Woodward.
The political climate in America has changed. We've been given a reprieve, and we have to work together to take advantage of that momentum and effect even more cultural and spiritual change. We can rebuild America. The American Family Association is working to do just that, and when you join with your support, it helps maximize the impact. As our thanks, we'll give you a DVD of biblical financial advice from Rob West called Biblical Stewardship. Please visit afa.net and get started today.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues. That's the name of this program. Here on American Family Radio, it's Thursday, May the 22nd, 2025. Joining me in studio is Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Tim.
And good morning, Chris.
Hello.
Chris Woodward. And we're scheduled to have Ray. Oh, Ray, you there? Okay, got it worked out.
Yeah, I'm here. I was on my hands and knees pulling wires and plugging things in and out, and suddenly here I got the connection to work somehow.
Amen. So, boy, yeah, you could have got down there. You're in Kansas City, and you were doing your own technical work underneath the desk.
Underneath the desk, just pulling plugs and
got it to it. Here you are.
I don't know how it happened.
Well, to borrow from Gomer Pyle, Shazam.
Shazam.
Shazam, here we are. So Ray's in Kansas City, and for those of you watching on YouTube, and you can't see Ray. We don't have a camera for him. But anyway, we're in studio here, and Tim, Fred, and Chris, and this is a sad morning after what happened. Tell folks what happened in Washington, D.C. last night.
Well, last evening there was we understand, a religious event at a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. And what happened was that attending that event were two people who work at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. These two individuals, and we found out later they're a couple that were about to get married. They were leaving this event last evening along with another couple of people, and shots rang out. This young man and woman, were killed. The shooter, we are told, and there's video of this guy, after opening fire on these individuals, he enters the museum, and somebody gave him a bottled water. But then they find out that this person did the shooting, and he is arrested by security people there at the museum, and he starts screaming out, "Free Palestine, free Palestine." So, two people are dead. This young couple, they were going to Jerusalem, I believe, next week, and were going to get married. And this guy, we understand I think he's 31 years old. He's from Chicago. I think police have identified him, Chris. They have a name for him. But the video that we have seen shows him being taken away by security people, and he is screaming, "Free Palestine." So basically, he has admitted to this horrible event last night there in Washington, D.C. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, was on the scene last night and saying he will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But she also said this kind of violence, this anti-Semitism, has got to be stopped.
Yeah.
We do have some audio of this information that Fred is sharing here.
Okay.
Let's begin with it, just because it drives home Fred's point. We're not making up or paraphrasing the story here about him yelling things about Palestine. Clip 1.
Free Palestine! Free
Okay, so that shooter has been identified as 31-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago.
Okay, so let me get this straight as we can. You have this Jewish museum in Washington, D.C., and this man from Chicago travels, I guess, from, it appears, his name is Elias Rodriguez.
Correct.
Which is a Hispanic name, but he doesn't look Hispanic to me. But anyway, I don't know what the situation is there exactly, because when I read the name, I thought, well, is this guy from another country came here to do this? But he is an American citizen from Chicago. So he's looking for a Jewish person to kill, basically.
Yeah.
And then he can make his political comments like he did here. So he kills this couple who were leaving a Jewish museum, and they just happened to be the ones that he decided to kill.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Wait, what were you going to say?
I mean, Elias, the first name of the man police say pulled the trigger and was the gunman. Elias is a Middle Eastern name. It's a variant of the word Elijah, or the name Elijah, which is also in Arabic as well.
Okay. So this is a targeted shooting, killing to make a political statement. He was seeking out Jewish people to kill, and this is what happened. So he's been arrested. And obviously, he basically turned himself in because he wanted to make a statement. He's 30 years old, you say?
31.
31. He was an employee of the, I have it here. This statement, the American osteopathic, how do you say that word?
Osteopathic.
The American Osteopathic Association joins with the American Osteopathic Information Association to express our profound sorrow in response to the tragic shooting deaths of these two Israeli embassy staff members outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday evening. So he evidently worked for them. I don't know where they're located, if they're located in Chicago or Washington, D.C. Anyway.
Yeah.
So,
a lot of reaction. Chris.
We do have a ton of reaction. Let's begin here. We mentioned Pam Bondi a little bit. By the way, Judge Janine Pirro, who many people know from Fox, is actually now she works for the federal government as a prosecutor. She's going to be the prosecutor over this case, and that was announced by Attorney General Pam Bondi. But I want to play a little bit of audio here, and we do have a lot of sound at our disposal from Americans and Israelis. Let's begin here. It's audio of a former Israeli diplomat by the name of Danny Dayan, if I said his name correctly or the name correctly. And the diplomat says here, while this type of terrorism happens every day, you never get used to it. Clip 3.
We are used to terrorism. Just a few days ago, a young Israeli mother was assassinated on her way to giving birth in a maternity hospital. So unfortunately, we are used to shocking attacks of this kind. But when you see the picture of these two young persons, a young man and a young woman that were about to be engaged, he was about to propose to her a marriage in Jerusalem next week. It's really heartbreaking. You can't get used to this kind of terrorism.
Now, talking about this kind of terrorism, our new ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, friend of this program and the ministry, he was on Fox and Friends this morning, and he says a lot of this terrorism is being aided by the growing number of anti-Semitic incidents in places like Europe and here in the U.S. as well. Clip 6.
This is an outrage, and when I see what should be educated European nations like the UK and France and Canada go after Israel, I just want to say to them, do you not remember how you won World War II? They're upset because Israel is trying to free hostages out of Gaza, trying to get them from the hands of Hamas. The reason that war has gone on so long and so many casualties is not because of the Israelis or the Americans. It's because of Hamas. We need to know who the real enemy is. And we've got a lot of ignorant, idiotic people who don't seem to understand the difference between right and wrong. It shouldn't be that complicated.
That's Governor Mike Huckabee,
Yeah.
who our ambassador now to Israel. Ray, any thoughts on all this?
Well, it is a despicable act of terrorism. Ambassador Huckabee called it idiotic, ignorant, idiotic people who don't understand. In a way, Fred, this is a continuation of what started on October the 7th, 2023. It's yet one more baseless attack on the Jewish nation, the Jewish state, the Jewish people. It's terrible, and I hope that this man gets whatever the maximum penalty is. I hope this man gets it.
Yeah. Mike Huckabee there in that piece of audio we just played made reference to the UK and Canada, and what he was referencing is that earlier this week, the brand new Prime Minister of Canada, the UK, and also France sent a joint letter to Israel, basically saying, Israel, you're at fault in this. You have to stop this war against the Hamas terrorists. Now listen, no one is arguing that it is horrific, the number of Palestinian civilians being killed. But Mike Huckabee and others have pointed out this war should never have started. It was started by the Hamas terrorists that run Gaza. This war could be over today if Hamas terrorists surrendered and gave up the remaining hostages. Israel would stop this right away, but the mainstream media and the far left in this country, we've seen these protests on our university campuses, and I think Mike Huckabee used the term idiots. And these people, this guy, last night, you heard him say, Free Palestine. Let's be very clear about this. Gaza was run by Hamas terrorists before they attacked the Israeli citizens on October 7th, 2023. They were free. Gaza was run as a free territory under the Hamas terrorists. But the Hamas terrorists carried out the massacre on October the 7th of at least 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children. This could all be over if Hamas surrendered. So what Huckabee is saying, what others are saying, stop blaming Israel. Israel has, what country would want to live next door to an area run by terrorists who are out to kill you? And again, when these university kids say Free Palestine, and when this guy last night said Free Palestine, they're not talking about, West Bank. They're not talking about Gaza. They're talking about let's get rid of Israel.
It's from the river to the sea type thing.
It is, exactly. Yeah. So that's what they're talking about. They hate Israel. They hate the Jewish people.
Yeah, I think this is going to go on till the Lord comes back.
I think you're right, Tim.
This has been going on for a long, long time. I'm talking about anti-Semitism in particular. You look at what Adolf Hitler, but even back to it goes way, 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 way back.
Yeah.
And okay, there's a belief system that these Hamas type thinkers, these kids on campuses in America, and these folks who say, Free Palestine. So so this is both spiritual, we can talk about that, and this is political.
Yeah.
All right. The political reason for this happening goes back really to the founding of Israel itself, 1948. And ever since that time, this piece of property, this land, if you will, the land of the Bible, was basically under the control of the British.
Mm-hmm.
I wish Ed were here. He has, and you do too. You guys may understand this better than I do. So after World War II, the creation of the nation of Israel by the United Nations, oddly enough, which now is very anti-Israel. Mm-hmm. But it was a place to create as a homeland for the Jewish people. Well, immediately the fighting began because the Arabs who were living there already, the Muslims, they didn't want the Jews coming in. And so, it just, am I right, Ray? Just immediately.
That's right. That's right.
That's why Ben Gurion, wasn't he one of the leaders of the Jewish people early on?
Ben Gurion, yeah.
Right.
So they've always had to fight for that land.
From day one.
Day one.
From day one, they were attacked north and south and east and west, so to speak, Arab armies coming from every possible direction. And I think it was a miracle of God. I think a providential miracle of God that the Jews survived in 1948.
Yes.
Again in 56.
Yes.
Again in 67. Again in 73. And in the various intifadas and so on, which continue actually in many ways up till this day. It's a miracle of God.
Yes.
The Jews have survived against overwhelming odds.
Yes. The reason I'm saying all this and telling you all this, I'm glad Ray added the historical context, is because I want people to know where the feelings come from of hatred for the Jews on the other side. I'm in no way saying they're legitimate. I'm just trying to make you understand people don't do this in a vacuum. Okay. So there's a war going on, has been going on, and Israel and the Jews have had to defend themselves. Otherwise, they go into extinction. Okay, they would just be annihilated. So when you have to fight to defend yourself, sometimes it involves killing other people who are non-combatants. Okay, so in the case of Gaza, where all these Palestinian Arab Muslims live, and they govern themselves because Israel got out about 15 years ago or so, remember?
Yes.
And they gave them this piece of property. Now that piece of property called Gaza on the Mediterranean Strip, the Israelis are watchful because they don't want rockets and ammo brought in there from underground tunnels from Egypt or through trucks or certainly from the sea. So Hamas, the political organization that controls Gaza and controls all the people, basically runs that area like a mob runs a city block, okay, or a gang. And so you don't dare cross them or your family's in trouble, okay, among the Palestinian people who live there. So they're basically in a hopeless situation in terms of changing the political landscape in their own region. So Israel has to take military action against the people in Gaza to try to get rid of Hamas. Well, they blend in with the civilian population.
Yes.
They hide in hospitals. They hide in mosques. They run away. They have tunnels everywhere. They live to plot to kill Jews and get rid of the Israelis, get rid of Israel as a country. That's why they did October the 7th.
Yes.
And massacred 1,200 people. So when Israel retaliates, they do kill innocent people. That is true. If innocent people you describe as non-combatants, and women and children included, now they don't want to, they don't try to, but it's inevitable because when you're going after somebody who wants to kill you and your people and destroy your country, and they hide among women and children, then it's unfortunate and sad and tragic. But that's what is he saying in the military? When that happens, collateral damage.
Yeah,
I don't like that word necessarily because it dehumanizes what's going on. But so the killing of these people in Gaza that Israel has to undertake to defend themselves causes rage among other people who support the Arabs in Palestine. That's where this comes. I tell you all that to tell you where this comes from.
Yeah. But here's the troubling, you've outlined the reality of things.
Right.
But here's what's so disturbing. That knowledge that you just talked about is there. That's the truth. What you just outlined, that is the truth. But still, we have these protests on American campuses.
Yes.
We have this kind of tragedy last night. Built on lies.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah.
Built on lies. And that is what's so disturbing. The kids on these campuses are being fed lies and distortions, propaganda by their university professors. The mainstream media in this country goes along with all of that. The truth is, as I say, Israel would stop the war tomorrow if Hamas put up the white flag and said, we're done.
Yes.
We're finished.
Yes.
Also, Israel goes to incredible levels of warning where they're going to bomb.
Right.
They put leaflets down. They don't know. They do not want to kill these.
They don't want to be at war. They want to be
No.
at peace.
No, they want to be at peace. You know, it was interesting this morning, the interview that Fox and Friends did with Mike Huckabee. The last question to him was from Ainsley Earnhardt, one of the hosts there. And she said, Ambassador Huckabee, you're also a preacher. He's a Baptist preacher as well. He's done that. He's done that in his past, along with being governor of Arkansas. And she said, you know, through the years, Israel's been attacked.
Yeah.
They've been suppressed by the Romans, etc. It's continuing today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so there's this we talked about the political and some mix of the spiritual. Maybe you guys can talk about the spiritual more. We've got an interview coming up with a couple of gentlemen who have a wonderful historical movie coming out that's going to be in theaters across America, called The American Miracle, Our Nation is No Accident. And we're going to talk to those two fellows when we get back from the break. But, yes, very sad situation, tragic situation that happened last night in our nation's capital with this fella gunning down two Jewish people leaving a museum. We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Once there were two farmers. One farmer was a devout Christian man. He was honest, fair, always helping anyone who needed help. The other farmer had no use for the way of the Galilean. He cheated, lied, stole from his neighbors. His one sole objective was to make $1. How he made the dollar wasn't important, just that he made it. There was also a local newspaper editor who was a very dedicated Christian man. He made it a point to try to lift up the good news in his paper, to urge people to be fair and honest in all their dealings. Once he wrote an editorial about the virtues of the Christian life. He told his readers how much richer they would be if they followed Christ. The farmer who had no use for Christianity read the editorial. It was the middle of September when the editorial appeared. The farmer cut out the editorial and saved it. Now both the Christian farmer and the non-Christian farmer had large crops of cotton in the field. Both of them depended upon their cotton crops for the largest portion of their income. So both watched over and cared for their cotton with utmost care. However, when October came to an end and the crops were all gathered, the farmer who had no use for religion had twice as good returns from the same amount of land as did the farmer who treated people fair and honest. Taking the figures from his extra good crop and those from the Christian farmer's very poor crop, the dishonest farmer sent the editorial back to the newspaper editor, along with a letter explaining the stupidity of the editorial. October has ended and the accounts are closed, he wrote. I did far better than my Christian competitor. You and your God are stupid and silly. Well, sometimes it happens that way. The evil prosper while the good suffer. There are many cases on record of just such a situation. It is true that the rain falls on the just and the unjust, and many times it falls on the unjust farmer while it misses the just farmer. The way of the Galilean is no guarantee for financial success. Folks coming into the fold thinking that it is are quickly disappointed. They become angry when they see the unjust prospering and the honest struggling. A man named David, a Hebrew king, once wrote that we should fret not over him who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. We should follow the Galilean not for what we can get from him, but for what we can give to his cause. The editor of the newspaper printed the dishonest farmer's letter. He then closed the article with these words: God doesn't close his accounts in October. Don't think the judge has forgotten the case just because he delays his judgment.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27, verse 4.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Welcome back to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Fred, Chris, and Ray, we thank you for listening to Today's Issues here on American Family Radio. We were talking about the slaying of two Jewish people, a young couple, engaged, and they were in Washington, D.C. at the Jewish Museum at an event. They were leaving. Some guy was waiting outside. He was a terrorist, an American citizen, evidently, who was from Chicago, and he was one of these radical Free Palestine folks, and he gunned him down.
Yes.
And hey, there's another big story developing real quickly before we go to our interview. You were telling me about before you. The one in San Diego.
In San Diego.
What happened this morning?
Around 3:30 this morning, San Diego time. We're not sure where this executive jet took off from, whether it was the San Diego airport or whatever, but there was a crash. This jet crashed into a San Diego neighborhood. What's being reported at this hour, multiple fatalities. We have a story at afn.net, and one of the images. This street where this plane crashed looks like a war zone. You have wreckages, burnt cars. Obviously, 3:30 in the morning, people who lived there were asleep for the most part when this occurred. So this is breaking news. We have, as I say, a story at afn.net. We will give you more information as it unfolds, but just another horrible tragedy involving aviation.
Well, we will definitely pay attention to that. What's the website for all the news, Chris?
AFN.net. AFN.net.
AFN, that's our news site. Welcome back anyway, Fred, Chris, Tim, and Ray. Well, summertime is a big movie season, and we have two gentlemen on with us now who have spent the last couple of years making a film about America. And the film is called The American Miracle, Our Nation is No Accident, and it's going to be in theaters on the big screen coming up in just a couple of weeks. And joining us right now is Timothy Mahoney. Timothy, you there?
I'm here, yes.
Do you go by Timothy or Tim?
Mainly by Tim, but
okay.
I was born with Timothy.
Yeah. Did your mom call you Timbo like mine did?
No, my mom just called me Timmy.
Or Timmy. Yeah, you get the Timmy and Lassie jokes. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Anyway, welcome, Tim. Appreciate you being on with us. And Ralf.
Absolutely.
Ralf Augstroze. Ralf has been a longtime friend of our ministry here. Ralf, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tim. Good to be with you.
Thank you. Hey, Timothy, tell us what your role is in this new movie that's coming out called The American Miracle, Our Nation is No Accident.
Well, I am the director, and I was able to, I knew Michael Medved, who wrote the book, The American Miracle, God's Providential Hand on America, and he and I were friends, and he said, would you help me tell this amazing story? And I prayed about it, and I was able to, I knew Ralf and Doug Maddox, and we were able to pull it together to make this incredible film.
Ralf, when does the movie come out?
The movie hits theaters on June 9th, so in just a little over a couple weeks.
Tell us what your role was in this, Ralf. How did this all come to pass?
Well, along with Tim and with our colleague Doug, we executive produced the movie and also produced individual aspects of the movie. One of my main responsibilities was producing the soundtrack. We have a Hollywood composer that I've known for quite a while, Lolita Ritmanis, who composed about 90 minutes of original music that we recorded in Latvia in Europe last fall with a symphony orchestra and a chorus. It's a beautiful soundtrack. And I also worked on the interviews, the scholar interviews, which you'll see in the movie itself.
All right, so Ralf, tell us when the movie, you told us when the movie comes out, June the 9th. Where can people go and watch the trailer, and where can they buy tickets?
Well, the main place to go to is AmericanMiracleMovie.com. And if you go to AmericanMiracleMovie.com, you'll find links to both find a theater location near you, as well as the trailer is there. There are also various resources there that people can use to post on their social media about the movie. And we really want to encourage people to do that. The Patterns of Evidence Foundation is presenting this movie. It's a nonprofit 501c3. So we're hoping people will come out and support this movie so that we can do and make more movies like this in the future. So AmericanMiracleMovie.com is where everyone can go to get more information and find out where in their area they'll be able to watch the movie.
Timothy Mahoney and Ralf Augstroze are our guests. They are executive producers and director of the movie The American Miracle, Our Nation is No Accident, which is coming out in theaters. So you want to go see it in the theater on the big screen on June the 9th. What is the give us the essence, if you will, Timothy, of the American? When the movie's titled The American Miracle, what is it? What does that mean?
Well, a lot of people don't know this story, but God's providential hand, in other words, the presence of God, people observed it being involved in George Washington's life, and we're going to be showing and telling the forgotten story, as it were, of the miraculous protection over George Washington. And then we're going to be showing and telling the story of times when he was in battles where bullet holes went through his clothing.
Oh, yeah.
Horses were shot out from underneath him, and God miraculously spared him for a purpose. And then we see that purpose would be coming to be the leader of this nation. And we're going to be seeing battle scenes with the British where miraculous things happen with storms that came in and prevented the British from attacking. A fog would come in and prevent and allow George Washington to escape. We're going to be showing the Delaware crossing. And then we lead to, well, what was this battle all about? And it was about the Constitution. And we're going to show you, in some ways, the battle that happened to bring that about. And it's an amazing film, speaking of God's miraculous hand on this nation, and it's an important film for today.
Ralf, where'd you find your actors for this movie?
We worked with both a casting agent, but also with actors that each of us had worked with in previous projects. So, we had Pat Boone, who plays the elderly Thomas Jefferson. We have Kevin Sorbo, who plays the young, relatively young Thomas Jefferson, who's the President of the United States. Nicole C. Mullen, who many people will recognize as a very well-known contemporary Christian artist, one of the most successful there is. This is her first dramatic acting role, and she surprised all of us. She knocked it out of the park. What an amazing actress she is. We also feature one of her songs that she recorded some years ago called Freedom. She's re-recorded it and rearranged it for the movie. So that song appears in the movie as well as the symphonic and the choral soundtrack. So Rachel Day Hughes is in the movie, who was in I Heard the Bells a few years ago, a movie that came out around Christmas. So there's Cameron Arnett, James Arnold Taylor, great, wonderful actors who were very interested and excited to be a part of this huge project.
Who picked the actors, Timothy?
Well, I was able to, as a director, make the final choice.
Okay, stop right there, because I sent my demo in.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, okay. I did a screen. I did a reading like y'all wanted me to. And you solicited, and I sent it in, and never heard back from you. And I don't know what happened there. So I'm glad I got right to the top to find out why y'all turned me down on this.
Yeah.
So
well, I have to tell you, there's more films coming, so you have a second chance.
Okay.
There's always a Betsy Ross project.
Well, I was going to play Ben Franklin. I've always wanted to play Ben Franklin, and it doesn't look like I got the chance in this movie. All right, I'm just kidding, folks. So, pardon me. So, Ralf, again, tell folks where they can go and watch the trailer and buy tickets. Can they find, is there a place on there that they can see, okay, the movie's going to be shown at this particular theater where I live and that kind of thing?
There are two ways of doing it. Fathom Entertainment is distributing the movie, so they are distributing in theaters nationwide across the country, over 1,000 theaters. So I'm sure that people can find a theater very close to them, if not the theater that they typically would go to. They can go to Fathom Entertainment's site to see what other movies Fathom is distributing, including The American Miracle. But the best place to find out exactly where The American Miracle would be at AmericanMiracleMovie.com. So that would be the place to go.
I could add to that. Yeah. You can put your zip code and city in there, and it tells you where the theater is if it's nearby.
Oh, that's awesome. So spell out.
We need people to spread the word.
Yes, absolutely.
We want people to be aware of this movie and to let their friends know, especially as we approach the 250th anniversary of our nation next year. This movie is getting everybody in the mood and up to speed and excited about this great anniversary we'll be celebrating next year.
Yeah. Timothy, go ahead and give the website again, if you would.
AmericanMiracleMovie.com. AmericanMiracleMovie.com. And you mentioned the name Ben Franklin. And we have an amazing Ben Franklin in this film, and he has a call to prayer that is like none other that I've seen. And some people would say Ben Franklin had a call to prayer, and he did, and it was recorded, and we filmed it. And it's a message. This film is a message to the nation right now about not forgetting God.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why people need to see this film.
Well, if you guys will get back in touch with us, maybe the day before, the day of, we'll have you, one or both of you, back on again because, but we wanted everybody to know about it now so people can be looking forward to it and get their tickets. June 9th, The American Miracle is the title of the movie. American Miracle, Our Nation is No Accident.
It's June 9, 10, 11. And previously I made the Patterns of Evidence films, and so they might remember me from that.
Yes.
But this is another pattern of evidence of God acting in history.
Yes, absolutely. Gentlemen, we got to go, but we thank you for all your work, and we will pray for you in this effort, and we look forward to good things happening with the movie.
Thank you.
Tim, thank you. Keep up the good work at AFA, and we look forward to your support on this film.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Thank you for those two fellas.
I watched the trailer this morning.
Yeah.
Production level is out of this world. It's absolutely
Which
amazing.
may explain why they didn't call me back.
Next time, Tim.
Well, you were up. It was either you or Pat Boone.
Yeah, or Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo. That's what it came down to, right?
Yeah, he had a little bit more muscle mass, and I think was the reason. Listen, I got to run. I got one of my. Ever how many grandchildren I got? I got one of their.
A bunch.
I got a bunch of grandkids, and I got one of their end of the school year
awards.
Deals.
Yeah.
So I got to run out of here.
You're doing the granddad thing.
So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
All right.
And wish you the best the rest of the show. Thanks.
All right. Very good. Very good. Hey, listen, want to go back to our top story in case folks, Chris just joined us.
Yes.
Just horrible tragedy outside a Jewish museum last night in Washington, D.C. 2 employees of the Israeli embassy who happened to be attending an event there. They were leaving that event, and a guy, the suspect, now been arrested, opened fire. Some people said they heard at least a dozen shots, but this couple who were they were engaged to be married. In fact, I'm told they were going to go to Jerusalem next week and be married. They were shot and killed. This guy's been arrested. A lot of people talking about this, Chris, and we talked a little bit a while ago about Mike Huckabee, who is now the U.S. ambassador. Mm-hmm. He is on site. He is there in Jerusalem right now, but he was interviewed this morning. And one of the questions he was asked, I found very interesting by one of the Fox hosts, is that, Israel has been under persecution for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And he had an interesting response. It's a thing of biblical proportions, which is what's going on with Israel right now. So let's have a listen to Ambassador Huckabee once again talking about from the biblical perspective. Cut number 7.
Well, he made his decision 3,800 years ago when he told Abraham that they would be a people unto himself in a land unto themselves. And for that length of time, there have been those who have tried to crush them and kill them and annihilate them. Right now, they're under threat. All of us who live here are under threat. I just came out of the shelters 3 hours ago from a Houthi missile that was fired toward Jerusalem. Thank goodness an Arrow rocket was able to intercept it and keep it from coming down on top of us. But it's something you live with every day here. And most people in the world have no idea that Israelis wake up every day knowing that there are Iranian proxy groups trying to kill them. And then there are individuals who are trying to kill them, just like what happened to those two precious young people, both employees at the Israeli embassy in Washington.
Ray, I'm curious as to what you think about a question I have here. Now, anti-Israel people are of people of all ages, but there are a lot of younger people today that are making the news for all kinds of things that involve anti-Israel situations, comments, actions, what have you. And that comes at a time in which we are hearing that more young people are interested in faith, in the Bible, and church. So my question to you is, what do we, the people, the body of Christ, need to do to reach more young people and give them the truth, what God really wants, what he has said, what he has done for Israel? What do we need to do to reach more people so that way we have more young people out there living right and not spewing hatred?
Well, there's a couple things going on that we need to think about. Number one, anti-Semitism has been with us since the days of Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael. It's very old. Fred, you and I have talked about this on air, how it goes back to the book of Genesis, but you really see anti-Semitism exploding in the days of the Pharaoh of Moses' day, right? Mm-hmm. And the hatred of the Jewish people is deeply rooted inside the human psyche. So that's one part of the answer, Chris, that sin is deep. Sin is deep in the human heart. And the hatred of the Jewish people is the hatred of the God of the Jewish people. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
The hatred of the Jewish people is hatred of the God of the Jewish people and the promises that he made, because God is the one who called. Remember, book of Deuteronomy says, I didn't choose you because you were great. I didn't choose you because you were powerful. You were not powerful. You're like one of the smallest people groups in the world. I chose you. I put my love upon you. I created you and through you, God promised, and he did. He brought his Messiah, the Lord Jesus, to the earth through the Jewish people. So you've got all of that on one hand. And your question is fascinating because it is true. And we can talk about this in a number of different ways. But I think the evidence is there. The younger generation, not the old people, my age, in their 70s or 60s or 50s or 40s, but let's get on down to the 30s and the 20s and even into the teens. There's a movement of God among young people who are eager to know the truth and they want some guidance. And I'll say this, and believe it or not, this is what you get when you ask a preacher a question like that. I'm going around the barn to answer the question, but I'm thinking out loud as I'm saying it, that I'm excited about the future because I see God doing something among young people. But this is what I see everywhere I go and people I talk to, people I trust say the same thing. Young people today, they're tired of fluff. They're tired of fakery. They're tired of hypocrisy. They say, give me the truth. Give it to me straight. Tell me who God is. Tell me what the Bible says. And I think one of the keys here is we've got to have pastors who understand the promises God made to the Jewish people and to the nation of Israel, and who are unashamed to say it boldly, clearly, and plainly. If we will preach the truth clearly, young people around the world are listening. They're waiting for that. So that is at least, Fred, part of the answer.
Well, and you've touched on something. Here's one of the problems, is that for hundreds of years, Ray, that many people who would fall under the banner of Christians taught that God was through with the Israeli people, with the Jewish people. God was through with them. You know, they would say things like, well, the Jews killed Jesus.
Right.
And so God is through with the Jewish people. Despite the fact of what is it, Romans 10, Romans 11?
Romans 11, yeah.
Yeah, Romans 11. Paul made it very clear. Can you talk to us a little bit about what Paul said in Romans 11 that addresses this thing that God is through with the Jewish people?
Yeah.
Look, he made a metaphor, if you will, in Romans 11. He talked about that the natural olive branches have been taken away, and the wild olive branches have been grafted in you. And you say, what does that mean? Well, he's talking about the promises. The promises God made to Abraham became true in the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. But those promises included a future for the nation of Israel. And Paul's point is, you Gentiles, don't get the big head. Okay, it's a loose way of saying, don't get the big head and think, well, it's all just about us. And Paul says, no, understand, if he took out the Jewish people and put the Gentiles in, he can put the Jewish people back into his plan anytime he wants. And Paul's point is, he's going to do that.
Yeah.
In the last days, I would say it this way. I think, Fred, the greatest revivals in history are not in the past.
Yes.
Greatest revivals, not the first Great Awakening, not the second, not the Layman's Prayer revival. I think the greatest revivals in history are dead ahead in front of us as we rush headlong into the last days and the coming of Jesus Christ. And my friends, Jews are coming to Christ in record numbers around the world. But as they say, you ain't seen nothing yet.
That's right.
Yet,
and it goes to Revelation chapter 7.
Yes.
And this is you talk about future events.
Yeah.
That God is going to have 140,000 witnesses. And that chapter is so clear. 12,000 from each of the 12,000 tribes, 144,000 witnesses, 12,000 from each tribe. And the tribes are mentioned. So to say that God is through with the Jewish people, you're ignoring, Ray and Chris, clear teaching in Scripture.
Yes, and you're also making God out to be a liar, which Scripture clearly tells us God is not a man that he should lie. We know that from the book of Numbers. So to say that God is through with them and has moved on, number one, you haven't read the end of the Bible. And number two, you're calling God a liar when he himself tells us in the word that he inspired man to write that he's not a man that he should lie. And Jesus himself told, is quoted as saying salvation is of the Jews. I mean, there's a whole lot of things here that we're just like touching the surface of the water on. We're not even really getting that deep into theology.
But hey, look, Revelation 7, verse 5, from the tribe of Judah, 12,000, from the tribe of Reuben, 12,000, from the tribe of Gad, 12,000, on down Manasseh, Asher, Simeon. Today, it's hard to understand who would be in the individual tribes because the centuries have passed, but God knows. And I know some interpreters, guys, they like to say, well, the sealing of these 12,000 from each of the tribes, this is some kind of symbolic picture of the Christian church. No, that's that's not possible.
No.
If words have any meaning, Gad means Gad, Reuben means Reuben, Manasseh means Manasseh. God's got a plan for ethnic Israel in the future. And as somebody said, in the days of the tribulation, God's going to turn loose 144,000 Jewish Billy Grahams around the world, and untold multitudes are going to come to faith in Christ.
Would it help you, Ray, and other ministry leaders if the people getting Sunday school lessons prepared for this weekend or in the weeks ahead, or maybe even pastors praying about what it is that the Lord would have me do on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights for the special kind of series messages? Would it help you if they put together lessons or sermons on what does God say about the Jewish people?
Listen, we need that. In light of what happened, the terrible thing that happened in Washington, D.C., we got to teach our people God has a plan for the Jewish people. He always had. He does. Our Lord was Jewish. The Christian Savior is the Jewish Messiah. God loves the Jewish people, and multitudes of them are going to embrace Jesus as their Lord and Savior in the last days.
Yeah, notice how Ray said is the Jewish Messiah, not was.
Yeah,
right.
Because he ain't dead.
Absolutely is.
Absolutely.
Excuse my Southernism.
All right. Well, listen, certainly be praying for the dear families of these two who lost their lives last night. And guys, I think God can use a tragedy like this to begin discussions amongst people, why, the questions to ask, why do people hate the Jewish people? Why are the mainstream media and others attacking Israel for defending itself against the October 7th, 2023 tragedy when Hamas terrorists massacred more than 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children? This doesn't make sense, all the hatred being directed towards Israel when Israel was the one that was attacked. Mm-hmm. I think it's a tremendous opportunity to witness and Ray, to talk about, well, here's the history of Israel and the Jewish people. And so what we're talking about, Ray, it goes back to spiritual battles. It goes back, and what are spiritual battles all about? Because there's an evil one who hates God and hates the Jewish people, and that is Satan. And he is orchestrating all of this. But as Ray, you were talking about, we know what the Bible says the end of the story is.
Look, Satan hates the Jewish people. He tried to destroy Moses.
Yes.
And remember, he used Pharaoh to stir up hatred, to kill the male Jewish babies. Look at King Herod and the slaughter of the baby boys of Bethlehem.
Yeah.
He did his best. Satan hates Jesus, of course, and he hates the Jewish people, and he does what he can to kill them. And so, friends, you may ask yourself, you may say to yourself, look, why is Israel doing what it's doing? Okay, why don't they come and negotiate? How do you negotiate with somebody who attacks and kills 1,200 of your people and openly says, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, Israel will be wiped off the face of the earth? Hamas understands one language, and it's the language of force. Nobody likes what the Jews, what Israel has been forced to do, but Hamas are the ones to blame for this.
Amen. Amen. All right, Chris, we just have a few minutes before we go to news. What else is happening? I mean, it's another one of those days.
It is, and it's not even Friday, and Fridays are really busy news days. I do want to direct everybody to our website because we're coming up on a break. We have had other big stories that could have been the lead story today, or the story we spent a lot of time discussing, had we not had the unfortunate shooting in Washington, D.C. there.
We've got a Supreme Court decision this morning.
We do, yes. That's where I was going. The Supreme Court today issued a split ruling on that religious charter school situation in Oklahoma. Because this was a split 4-4 ruling, that means the lower court ruling by the Oklahoma Supreme Court against the school stands. So in Oklahoma, this Catholic charter school will not be allowed to operate as a charter school. Whether or not they decide to go forth with a Catholic school, I'm not sure. We'll follow up on that later today. But for right now, it was a 4-4 decision, which, again, the Oklahoma Supreme Court and its ruling against the charter school stands. And I did confirm that with our Abe Hamilton earlier this morning.
Now, this was an interesting division even within Oklahoma because
yes.
The governor and the attorney general were at odds over this?
The governor was fully in favor of the religious charter school, and it would have been the first religious charter school in these United States of America. But the attorney general, who is a Republican, same party as the governor, was opposed to the school under the concern that government shouldn't be involved with a religious school. And the attorney general has made comments such as, if we allow this school to operate, then you have to allow for other schools that teach things like Sharia law or even Satanism to operate. That's an actual quote from the Attorney General, which we have used time and again in our coverage of this story.
And charter school, just to be clear, is a school that is fully funded by taxpayers' funds.
Yes.
So you can kind of see, and Ray, the concerns perhaps that the Attorney General had that once you put this in place, then other religious groups could come along and say, like an Islamic school, we want to be fully taxpayer funded. So we'll see where this goes.
There are legitimate arguments on both sides. And if people want to know how come the court split 4-4, it's because Amy Coney Barrett recused herself, evidently because she had some kind of connections with one of the lawyers on, one of the sides there. Yeah. So that's why it's unusual, Fred, for to end up a 4-4 split on the Supreme Court.
Yes. All right, we've got to take a break for news. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ray, you and I will take a little break. We'll be back, and Steve Jordahl will be joining us. As I say, there are stories we didn't get a chance to talk on in the last hour, and we're going to get into those stories when we come back. Right after the break, you're listening to Today's Issues. Don't go away.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
American Family Radio has always been portable, but thanks to technology, AFR apps have redefined our portability. Whether you prefer Apple or Android, we've got you covered on your phone or tablet. We're also available on Roku, and of course, you can get Alexa to play us on your smart device. Take us with you across town or across the country. Visit afr.net or your app store today.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The House voted to pass President Trump's big, beautiful budget bill this morning. House Republican Conference Chairwoman and Michigan Representative Lisa McClain praising her GOP colleagues for their hard work in passing the bill and President Trump for his vision and leadership.
A unified Republican conference with phenomenal leadership. And this Republican conference works as a team.
Officials in California providing an update on a small plane crash into a neighborhood in San Diego early this morning. Assistant Fire Chief Dan Eddy says first responders quickly moved to fight the fire.
We were able to work with San Diego PD, evacuate homes across the region as we came through here and evacuate everything to the south of us. We were able to knock down those fires. At this time right now, we are able to say that no one was transported from the scene. So we don't have anybody that was transported off the scene, which is great news for us on this one.
It is not known how many people were on the plane. A man who shouted anti-Jewish slogans has been arrested for killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers who were leaving an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. Wednesday night. David Spunt has the latest.
There are really 2 tracks right now. There's this investigation going on. Authorities are questioning the suspect, trying to track down all leads, trying to figure out exactly what led up to this shooting last night. Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram both were soon to be engaged. Both worked for the Israeli embassy in Washington. Both lost their lives after police say a 30-year-old from Chicago shot and killed them. Yaron Lashinsky's father spoke to our colleague Trey Yingst in Israel, says the 2 were soon to be engaged. Yaron wanted to bring her to Israel to meet the family before he proposed. He told Fox News, quote, "They were in love, one for the other. The embassy told us they were like a star couple at the embassy. I never expected something like this. He had his whole life before him."
The Supreme Court is split on a case out of Oklahoma regarding funds to Catholic charter schools. Shannon Bream in Washington says Justice Amy Coney Barrett has recused herself from the case.
There's really no decision on this issue. The question goes unanswered. What happened was the court, without Justice Barrett as part of this, deadlocked 4-4. And literally the paper that comes out as the opinion says the court is equally divided. And that means the lower court decision stands. What the Oklahoma State Supreme Court had decided was that these charter schools, religious in nature, cannot take part in the public funding or the system of public charter schools. So this applies only to that decision then there in Oklahoma, but I would be very surprised if this topic doesn't come back to the courts, because this push to make sure that religious schools can take part as charter schools is happening all across the country.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has more to say about a potential Islamic development near Dallas. AFN's Robert Thornton has more.
Epic City continues to be a topic of discussion in the Lone Star State. It's a planned 402-acre development northeast of Dallas, which would include 1,000 houses, a mosque, an Islamic school, and retail shops, among other things. The Dallas Morning News says that last year, some members of the East Plano Islamic Center, one of the largest mosques in North Texas, formed the for-profit entity Community Capital Partners to manage the Epic City project. Some are concerned about Sharia law, and others are concerned that it will discriminate against those people that are not Muslim. Governor Greg Abbott was a guest on Fox's Will Cain Show. He said construction has not started.
When you develop a large tract of land, you don't just immediately start turning dirt. You go through the promotion process and then the permitting process, and those are areas where Texas has stepped in to put a stop to this. In the promotion process, what we found are allegations of illegality.
Regarding building permits, he said the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality says no authority exists for any construction project to go forward if a decision is made to proceed.
There is a cease and desist order by a state agency, as well as alleged violations of the Texas Fair Housing Act. And then in addition to that, we have the Texas Attorney General, as well as now the United States Department of Justice, all conducting investigations to ensure this project is stuck dead in its tracks.
I'm Robert Thornton.
More news online at afn.net. And download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildman and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Today's Issues continues on AFR.
And we are back to this Thursday edition of Today's Issues. Fred Jackson here, along with Steve Jordahl. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
And Ray Pritchard in Kansas City. Good to have you guys with us. If you're wondering what happened to Tim had to go to a graduation ceremony, I think, for one of his grandchildren. One of those things this morning. So he's doing the good granddad thing.
Thank goodness. Thought it was me.
There you go. Well, I tell you what, it's another busy news day. The big stories we've been covering so far today, the tragedy outside of that Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. last night, where two employees of the Israeli embassy were shot and killed. There's a guy arrested. As he was being taken into custody, he was screaming, "Free Palestine." So it seems to be yet another incident of gross anti-Semitism that we are seeing across this country. The guy will be prosecuted. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, was at the scene last evening saying this guy will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We also have a tragic event in San Diego overnight, 3:30 this morning. An executive jet crashed into a neighborhood. They say there are multiple fatalities there. It looks like a war zone. And the Supreme Court decision this morning with regards to that proposed charter school, Catholic charter school in Oklahoma. Supreme Court went to a split decision, 4-4. Amy Coney Barrett had recused herself in that case. And so the lower court decision stands, which means that charter school will not go forward. But there are other stories. You know, back, was it a month or so ago that the Ukrainian president was in Washington, D.C.?
Mr. Zelensky.
And we had on camera, live, a verbal... There's a phrase in hockey called Donnybrook.
Yes.
We had a verbal Donnybrook.
Verbal Donnybrook. Right.
Live to the world.
Uh-huh.
Where President Trump and the Vice President, Vance, really took on the Ukrainian president, saying, basically, you're not doing enough to end this horrible war.
Right.
Well, we all thought, man, that was historic. That kind of thing will never happen again.
That was amateur hour, Fred.
All of that to say, there was another Donnybrook of sorts, Steve, yesterday.
Oh, my goodness.
In the Oval Office. Tell us about that.
This was going to go down as one of the... for those of you who are like Gen Z gangster moves, President Trump had a visit from the president of South Africa.
Yeah.
Yesterday, and of course, one of the things that has been in the news has been the immigration, I guess, of some refugees from South Africa, some white refugees, because there are claims that there's a genocide going on in South Africa of the
white farmers.
And this is the kind of the backlash from the racist regime that was there before, apartheid that was there in South Africa before. Anyway, the South African president, and I'm looking up his name, is Ramaphosa, I think. He visited the White House, was sitting there, and he knew this was going to come up. He brought a couple of white South African golfers, Retief Goosen, one of them, and and he brought some other staff that was white. But President Trump was not in a mood to take any of this. So this was the discussion that happened in the Oval Office. You're going to hear the South African president, and then you're going to hear Donald Trump, and then you're going to hear something that I probably think is going to live in the brain of the South African president for years to come, that he will shudder every time he hears the phrase, dim the lights, cut 11.
I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have, wait. We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and that. Is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one.
And there is the leader of a South African opposition party saying, we're going to take your land. We're not going to give you a dime for it, and you're going to sit and be happy with it, basically.
I tell you, Ray, I was sitting in my office yesterday. This all unfolded about noon or so Central Time.
Ramaphosa is the name of the president.
Ramaphosa, yes. So they're sitting in the Oval Office. If you've watched some of these visits by these international leaders, they're sitting in President Trump and the visitor sitting in these yellow chairs in the Oval Office, and the delegation yesterday from South Africa is on the left-hand side, sitting on some couches, and then Vice President Vance was there, and I think Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, on the other side. So that's the setting. And then they're talking. These conversations going on.
Right.
And then President Trump. There's a video. They set up this video screen. And so while President Ramaphosa of South Africa is trying to say, hey, it's not really as bad as what you're hearing about white farmers in South Africa being killed, then the video begins to show, and one of the images in this video was a roadway in South Africa lined by crosses, and the crosses represent white farmers who have been killed in this. And then, as you heard there's another African political leader who is talking about killing the white farmers. So it was a moment when the South African leader, Ray, was confronted with the truth, and I don't think he was ready for what President Trump was going to do.
You know, that's hard to understand, this President Ramaphosa. Did he not know what happened to Mr. Zelensky?
Oh.
Did he not learn anything from what happened a few? Shouldn't he have known this was going to come up? You know, in the old days, you can't imagine George W. Bush, good man, but you can't imagine him doing this. H.W., you can't. Ronald Reagan, you cannot imagine them doing this, which is one thing that drives people across the spectrum, some of them just nuts, because Donald Trump, like him or not, he's not afraid to break the norms and confront people with reality and with the truth. It's also kind of funny. There was a little before the thing goes on. He's going, okay, get the lights. It's over there. It's over there behind you on the wall. Get the lights. Like it's something's happening at junior high assembly. Okay, but God bless President Trump, because the president of South Africa, his only answer seemed to be, this can't be true because these men wouldn't have come with me if it were true. He did not have an answer for the road with all the crosses beside it. Had no answer. I thought it was a defining moment that President Trump is not going to let these bad actors come into the White House and pretend everything's okay when it's not.
There is a story that is told by somebody that was actually in the room. I didn't bring the audio in, but it is Donald Trump, and he's negotiating withdrawal from Afghanistan, and he's negotiating with the Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sitting on a couch, and the Taliban leader is sitting across from him, and there's a translator, of course. And so President Trump says to the Taliban leader, "We're going to withdraw from Afghanistan." The translator goes, "We're going to withdraw from Afghanistan. But there's conditions." Okay, but there are conditions. Tell him that if he hurts the one single hair out of an American, if one single American is hurt, I'm going to kill him. And the translator looks at him and goes, tell him. So he says, okay, Mr. President says, if you harm the hair on one single American, he's going to kill you. At which point, Donald Trump pulls out a picture, a satellite image of the Taliban leader's home, hands it to him, and walks out of the room.
We know where you live.
Exactly.
Sleep well, buddy.
This guy, and he said, you know what? Not a single American was killed in Afghanistan until the disastrous withdrawal under Joe Biden.
I'm told by folks who have worked in other administrations, these kinds of things happen behind closed doors. But with President Trump, it's all out there. He's not going to hide this at all. And it's going to be interesting to see.
If I insult you, I'm going to do it in public.
Yeah.
If I threaten you, I'm going to do it in front of the whole world.
Yeah. And it was interesting. Vice President Vance and Secretary of Defense Hegseth, they were sitting on the couch there and they were smiling like, listen, the whole world has just seen this.
You know what else is pretty gangster? You know what else is pretty intense? You know who President Trump had standing behind him on behind the couch he's sitting on? Elon Musk.
Yes.
Elon Musk, who's a white South
African,
who's now an American citizen, there were some pictures of him, and one of the pictures was captioned, "This Musk looks like he's about ready to jump across the couch and strangle the South African president from the look on his face." Now, it's interesting because the mainstream media does not like this narrative of the genocide in South Africa, that anything bad could happen to white people, that white people are being given any kind of privilege of immigration to this country. And it may be the fact that there are reporters and they just weren't paying a whole lot of attention, but an NBC reporter decided to...
in the midst of all of this.
Okay, they're talking about a genocide. They're talking about the death and killing of thousands or hundreds, at least, of farmers and the appropriation of farmland without any compensation. And NBC thinks it's a good time to ask this question. Cut 12.
The Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing, they also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back. You ought to go back to your studio at NBC because.
And that's another aspect, Ray, of this administration and Donald Trump. I don't think there'll be another Donald Trump ever as far as presidents in this country.
How could there be?
There could not be.
There could not be another person like that.
You know, he started the whole narrative of fake media. He's been willing, and you know what? He is exactly right. That reporter from NBC yesterday did not want to deal with the truth of what was being told about the situation in South Africa. So he wanted to take the whole conversation in another direction, and President Trump, Ray, was not buying it.
You know, we use the expression "clean your clock," and that reporter got his clock cleaned on national TV for the world to see.
So the rest of the media didn't get scolded in the White House, but there was apparently a memo that went out from D.C., the Democrat National Headquarters, to all of the mainstream media outlets, and it's interesting. When this happens, there's a phrase or a word or something that usually pops up, and you can tell it's coordinated because everybody's using the same phrase or word. Listen to cut 13.
The tense confrontation, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
Up next, another Oval Office meltdown. President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
President Trump is being accused of conducting something of a diplomatic ambush of South Africa's president in the Oval Office.
Felt like an ambush in there, kind of like the President Zelensky meeting in the Oval Office.
This was an ambush.
Nothing could have prepared him for this multimedia ambush.
What started as, to some degree, an ambush.
Well, Katie, I mean, it was an ambush.
Ambush.
Ambushed. Ambush.
An ambush.
Ambushing.
Ambushed inside the Oval Office.
I don't know. Did you hear anything, Ray, that was consistent throughout that?
Was there something about an ambush? Did I hear the word ambush?
You might have. For you.
Evidently, the memo went out, and everybody was instructed, use that word.
Yeah.
But, you know, guys, it is more evidence of where the mainstream media and where journalism is, for the most part, in this country. These reporters, NBC, CBS, CNN, whatever the case may be, I think it is Pew Research has done some surveys through the years. 90% of the reporters vote Democrat.
Oh, at least.
And
I'd be surprised if it's that.
The discipline,
right.
The discipline in news journalism is gone. It is gone. They have become political activists, which explains so much, Steve. And I know we've been covering stories, and it's been out there, this new book that's put out by Jake Tapper about, the White House lied to us about the condition of Joe Biden. That's not true. It was their job, as was the American people saw it in the last couple of years of Joe Biden, but they were willing to try to hide the mental deterioration of Joe Biden. And now that you've got this guy at CNN who's written this book, like, we really didn't see it ourselves, and they're blaming the White House for trying to hide this, when in reality, hey, Fox News, they reported on it the whole time.
As did we, by the way.
And we did as well. And so it is just, is it any wonder why, Ray, when the polls are being taken about trust in mainstream media, it has absolutely plummeted. Absolutely plummeted.
Well, people don't trust the government. They don't trust the media. They don't trust the establishment news sources. And I think if you graph it, it was rising anyway. But once the pandemic and COVID-19 hit, I think the level of distrust of the government has been, and our leaders. Mm-hmm. So are we surprised that we were lied to about Joe Biden's health? No, not at all. I think it's sad to say, Fred, we've almost come to expect that of our leaders.
You know what's sad about the Biden story, Steve, is, and some people are digging into this now, is that his wife, Jill Biden, she had to know this. She had to see this in her husband. And if the story is true that he's been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, she had to know this.
I've heard the term elder abuse thrown out several times, heard it thrown out several times with regard to her There was some ambition in that within that family. It's legend, the ambition of the Biden family, and I think she bought into that. It depends on how cynical you want to be, but there are several things that come to my mind and theories that I've heard that probably the most cynical one is that they knew that he was obviously they knew he was mentally compromised, but they knew for a long time that he had cancer. They needed to get him through the election, at which point, oh, breaking news, Joe Biden has cancer, he's going to step down, or they let him live out his life until he passes away, and then all of a sudden, oh, look, Kamala Harris is now president. Yeah. She gets to finish his term, and then she gets 2 terms of her own, according to their thoughts. Now, I don't think she would have been within the first week shown to be not have the capacity to be the president, so she would have had 2 other terms. But there's a thought that this was the plan all along. They knew, they had to know, and that they were just trying to get to the first woman president.
And the June 2024 debate, Ray, it was sent by God. It had to be, because they could no longer lie about his condition.
That was the worst performance by a major presidential candidate on the debate stage I think we've ever seen. And that moment when Donald Trump looked at Joe Biden and said, I don't know what he was saying. I don't think he knows what he was saying. Yeah. And all of America nodded because what he said didn't make any sense. And it was sad that you could no longer simply say, well, this Republican. We saw how he performed on that stage up there. It was awful.
Yeah. Apparently, Steve, in this book that Jake Tapper has put out, is that he talks about, he was one of the people hosting that debate last June. Jake Tapper.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
And he wrote a note to the producers when they saw how Joe Biden was failing mentally right there on the stage live before America. And was it Dana?
Dana Bash.
Dana Bash was also there. I think she wrote, Joe Biden just lost the election.
Yeah.
This is in the midst of all of this. And they realized they couldn't hide it anymore.
Yeah. And it is amazing to see Jake Tapper go around and act. I mean, he's selling a book, so he's got to do something. But to act the part of, I didn't know, it's not very credible.
Yeah. Anyway, we just got a few minutes left. You got something else for us?
Yeah, let's talk about artificial intelligence. Did you know, folks, if you are sitting out there, mom and dad, and your son or daughter is home from school for the summer, and you want to keep them involved, you don't want them sitting in front of the TV all day, so you get them a reading list. Here's some books we want you to read, right? Well, an author has helpfully published a list which was reprinted in several large, important papers,
like the New York Times.
I think it was the Philadelphia Inquirer was one of them, and
big newspapers.
Big newspapers, and we found out the Chicago Sun-Times was another. We found out something about this.
This list.
Yeah, listen to Cut 14.
This summer reading list ran in multiple national newspapers today. But when people started actually reading it, they noticed something very strange about the actual text. For example, it promotes a new book by author Andy Weir, the guy that wrote The Martian, called The Last Algorithm, and it has a whole plot summary here. The problem is, this book doesn't exist. 10 of the 15 books on their summer reading list for 2025 don't exist. And you already know why. It turns out the author used AI to write it, ChatGPT or something similar. So readers all across the country are hearing about a new book by Percival Everett called The Rainmakers. This book will never arrive. 404 Media actually interviewed the guy who wrote the list named Marco Buscaglia, who admits he uses AI to write his articles but says he normally checks these things. This time this one just slipped through. You know, the entire article. AI did not care. If I let my dog drive my car and the dog drives the car off a bridge, the headlines should not say, dog crashes car. I crashed the car when I put the dog at the wheel. I made the mistake. The entire future hangs on whether or not we will hold people responsible for what the AI does.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, we can tell people anything that Ray Pritchard has written has not been written by AI.
That's exactly right. And think about that, Fred. You're saying there were 15 books on the list, and 10 of them were completely made up, fictitious books.
Amazing.
How is that possible? What was Chat GPT thinking?
I don't know, but I did hear about the new book from Ray Pritchard on the Book of Hezekiah. So I'm looking
coming
forward
out
to that
next
one.
week. That's right. From
Check
Phantom
it out.
Publishers.
All right, guys. Great to be with you today. And thank you, Steve. Thank you,
Pleasure.
Chris. Good to be with you. And also, Ray, hope that you have a great weekend.
Thank you, and you too.
All right. And keep writing. And your website is what?
KeepBelieving.com.
KeepBelieving.com.
Right. None of it is AI. It's just all our stuff.
Guaranteed.
Come check us out.
Guaranteed. All right. And thank you to our producer, Brent Creeley. All right, folks, more great programming ahead here on American Family Radio. Don't go away. We'll see you again real soon.